Councillor Barbara Blake. I am the chair. If I can ask the committee to introduce themselves, please.
Nice. Member for Tottenham Hill.
Scott Emery, Highgate Ward.
Sean O'Donovan, councillor for Tottenham Hill.
Kaushika Amin, councillor for Northumberland Park Ward.
Alex Worrell, Stroud Green.
Kathy Brennan, councillor for Muswell Hill.
Councillor John Bevan, Northumberland Park.
Thank you. If I can ask officers to introduce themselves, please, starting on my left.
Cody Sprott, Principal Committee Coordinator.
Justin Farley, Legal Officer.
Rob Chizovsky, Director for Planning and Building Standards.
Catherine Smith, Head of Development Management and Planning Enforcement.
Sarah Madondo, Planning Officer.
And Richard Truscott, Design Officer.
Thank you. And other officers will introduce themselves when relevant. Can I just ask, please? We do ask the committee. We do have someone in the here this evening who is hard of hearing. So can everyone speak up and speak clearly? Is that all right for you, Ms. Cowan? Okay. Would it be easier for you to sit on the top table? Maybe sit there. Would that be easier? I don't want to. Maybe on the yeah. Just indicate if you can't hear anything or you want anything repeated. Okay. Thank you. Right. Thank you. So we're on to item 1. This is filming at meetings. This meeting is being recorded. All registered speakers should be aware that they will be recorded for live or subsequent broadcast via the council's internet site or by anyone attending the meeting. Item 2 is the planning protocol. Members and speakers are requested to note the information set out at item 2 on the agenda. Item 3 is apologies for absence, and I have no apologies for absence. Item 4 is urgent business, and I've received no items of urgent business. Item 5 is declarations of interest. Do members have any declarations of interest, please? Councillor O'Donnell.
Yes, thank you. On the second application, the Alexander Palace and Park Trust have made some comments. As part of my role as a councillor, I am on the Alexander Palace and Park board, although I don't have any pecuniary or financial interest. I of course will consider all matters here with an open mind and without predetermination. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor O'Donovan. So item 6 is minutes of the meeting held on the 2nd of June. Will we approve the minutes, please? Agreed. Thank you. Right. Item 7 is planning applications. Following items of planning applications, we're on to item 8, and that is 37 to 39 West Road, N17 ORN, and that is pages 5 to 162 in the pack. I won't read out the proposal. That's all in the agenda. So I'll hand over to the planning officer to introduce the application. So it's over to you, Sarah.
Good evening, councillors. Good evening, Chair. So the application site is 37 to 39 West Road, and the reference number is HGY 2025//6017. And the proposal is for the demolition of the building and redevelopment of site to create 6,044 square meters of modern, flexible employment floor space. The development will include a standalone building with ancillary floor space and associated service yards, car parking, and landscaping. On this slide is just the aerial view of the existing site highlighted in red. The next slide shows the location plan of the proposed development highlighted in red. On this slide is the aerial view in relation to the surrounding buildings. To the north of the site is Brentwood Road. To the west of the site is 18 West Road, recently approved scheme. Further to the north of the site is 175 Willoughby Lane, which has been completed. Finally, another scheme which was approved on west side of Terrace Road, that is between Northumberland Park to the south and Brentwood Road and to the north. The development will be 4 stories in height, so it's considered to be higher than the proposed scheme. On this slide is just existing photographs of the site. The photograph on the left is a bird's eye view of the existing building. The top photograph shows the view of West Road looking north. The second photograph on the left shows the rear of the site looking southeast. The bottom left photograph is West Road looking from Brentwood Road Junction. And the second right photograph is West Road looking at the site entrance. And then the bottom right photograph is Brentwood Road looking southwest. Policy designation. The site falls within designated employment area, which is classified as a significant industrial location. Breaking down the proposal, so the proposal is for demolition of the existing building, erection of 1 times 3-story building with flexibility to be used across Class E, B2 and B8 with ancillary office accommodation. The proposed building will have a parapet height of 17.8 meters. It will increase the employment floor area to 6,044 square meters, improvement to access arrangement and service yard, landscaping provision, cycle parking, car parking, and refuse storage. The considerations are the principle of the development, design and appearance, impact on neighboring properties, parking and highways, energy and climate change, urban greening factor and trees, and Section 106 heads of terms. So in terms of the principle of the development, it's located within a designated industrial location. The redevelopment of the site would result in a net increase in total floor area, thereby supporting the intensification of existing employment site. The proposed development will provide jobs for local residents to boost the economy and is supported by the council regeneration aims. The proposed redevelopment of site would potentially increase the number of jobs, full-time equivalent jobs, which is a significant gain. The scheme will also deliver reductions of 111 carbon dioxide emissions on site. In terms of design principles, the applicant submitted a pre-application and the proposal was also presented to the quality review panel, who advised that the proposal had potential subject to further amendments. The scheme was amended following the QRP review. I just wanted to point out this slide shows the 3D image of the building fronting West Road. The layout of the proposed building will be L-shaped with 2-story ancillary floor space and an open mezzanine floor space at the height of 17.8 meters. The access to the building will be via West Road, and the parking and service area have been set back from the street and will be screened by a 2.4 meter high walled mesh fence. Vehicle access The access of the building, the vehicle access will be under the office area, which redirects loading away from the street frontage to improve pedestrian safety and security. In terms of appearance, the proposed building will be modern and contemporary, and the building will feature long ribbon windows on the main facade facing the street. The whole main street frontage, including the office wing, is to be composed of two materials comprising of brickwork to the ground floor, to reference neighboring older brick properties, and timber cladding to the upper floors of the building. This will be in accordance with the developer's consistent branding, featuring primary cladding materials across the Goya developments. The remainder of the facade of the main block are to be externally finished in profile cladding in silver grey. A sodium roof over the office will be discussed further in the energy and climate section. In terms of materials, the materials, as mentioned earlier, are as follows. The office facade features a buff brick with timber cladding, the brickwork matching the existing building, the brickwork to match existing buildings in the area. The upper floors will feature timber cladding and metal cladding. The elevations will be the elevations which are less prominent will consist of mainly metal cladding in silver grey color. All the details of materials will be secured via condition. This slide shows some schemes which have been approved within the area. So the top photograph is a CGI of 18 West Road, which was approved last year and is now under construction. It's approximately about 12 meters in height. To the top right is 175 Willoughby Lane, which has now been completed and ready to be rented. So it's this one here. And then the bottom one shows a CGI of International House on Tariff Road, approved last, I think this year, and has 4 stories. So on this slide, I'm just showing some of the Goya developments. So this is just to indicate that this is their brand. When the application obviously went to QRP, there were some issues raised about timber, but as you can see, that is their brand. And in this particular application, they have incorporated brick at the bottom, which is something that we requested, and they've done it. Landscaping. In terms of landscaping, the existing site primarily consists of tarmac and zero hard standing. The proposed development seeks to address this with landscape frontage that will combine large species of trees, which are compatible with the street character. The applicant is proposing to improve the situation by incorporating high-quality landscaping and amenity sitting area to the eastern borough fronting West Road. The landscaping treatment comprises of planting of ornamental shrubs and grasses to soften the street view, increase the visual interest, and provide valuable habitat for wildlife. To the rear of the building, the landscaping treatment will also incorporate ornamental shrubs and trees to visually break up the extensive hard surfaces. Additional trees will be planted along on West Road, and this is to be secured via Section 106. To the north and west of the boundaries, a new fence will be installed, and the details will be secured via a condition. Urban greening and trees. The applicant's landscaping and urban greening report calculates that an urban greening factor of 0.34 will be achieved, which is low. However, given that additional trees secured via Section 106 will increase the urban greening factor to 0.41, which is considered by officers to be an improvement. In terms of biodiversity net gain, the proposed development is exempted from requiring BNG. The planting of new trees, planters, ornamental shrubs, and cedar green roof is a significant improvement that will encourage biodiversity net gain on this site, which is acceptable. In terms of trees, all the trees will be retained and a condition will be attached to protect these trees. In addition, as said before, 6 times street trees will be secured by Section 106 agreement. The applicant reports that the development qualifies for a D- exemption from requiring biodiversity net gain on site. However, the planting of trees and planters and ornamental shrubs and cedar green roof is considered improvement that will encourage biodiversity net gain on site, which is acceptable. Overall, the scheme will increase the green coverage from 0% to 7.89, which is considered to be a significant improvement. On this slide, I'm just showing the floor plan. So this is the blocked plan, which shows a single building with associated car parking, landscaping areas on West Road. The car parking spaces, I'll discuss that a bit further in the highways section. This is the ground floor plan of the proposed building. This is the first floor plan of the building showing offices located on the first floor and a mezzanine floor. The proposed second floor will also comprise of offices. This slide shows the office area, also shows the roof lights to be inserted on the roof, and also shows the green roof over the office element. So it's here. This slide shows the proposed building fronting West Road. So these are some elevations of the proposed building. The elevation shows some trees along on the West Road and shrubs to be planted at the front. The developer, as said before, will contribute towards street trees via Section 106. The slide also shows the building is split into 2 elements. That is the main bulk of the warehouse and the entrance office wing by means of a slender 4-height glazed slot. So here, so it separates the building on the main entrance. This slide shows the elevation fronting the northern side. The slide also shows the loading bay, which will be set back. The elevation shows the contrast between the the warehouse building and the office building. So as you can see, that will be the office bit, and this is where the loading bay will be. So that there's a contrast between the buildings. This is something QRP raised and was addressed by the applicant by use of different materials. Also, the QRP raised the point that the design of the main facade was complicated and should be simplified by expressing 2 functions more clearly. And as you can see, that the design is reflected here. The next slide, I'm going to be discussing the parking and highways. This slide shows the office element. So I just wanted to indicate again, this is where the office element is going to be. This is where the loading bay is going to be. And as you can see, the building is finished in different materials to the office element. In terms of parking, the site has a public transport accessibility level of 2, which indicates that it has poor access. The proposal includes improvements to access arrangement to be secured via Section 106. The proposed development will provide 18 car parking spaces, including 2 accessible parking spaces and 2 shed bays, and a total of 22 spaces, 4 electrical charging points. The proposal will also include 12 long stay and 6 short stay cycle spaces, and these are in accordance to a policy which is supported by officers. The proposed development will have 6 loading bays and a service yard set back again away from the main building, screened by a fence, a 2.4 meter fence. The proposal will also include space for cargo bikes, details to be secured via condition. Detailed swept paths drawings have been included, and the service and delivery plan demonstrates how 16.5 meter HGV lorries will be able to reverse into the loading bay and live on a forward gear. The site is within proximity to the strategic road network, which gives the site unique opportunity for deliverers not to take place via residential streets. And in addition, in detail, it will be secured by a condition as part of the final service and delivery plan. The highways works include removal of many vehicle crossovers. It's going to improve the front bit. And I hope when you remember when we went out on site, the car parking at the moment is not formalized. So this development will formalize parking. The drop curves will be removed. Off-street loading bays, it will now be off-street. The drivers will go through and it will be to the rear of the building. New gate vehicle access will also be installed. Reinstatement of footways, extension of existing on-street parking bays, establishment of road markings for parking restrictions, and then a stage 1 and stage 2 safety audit will take place. These highways works will be secured via a Section 278. In terms of energy and climate change, in terms of impact on amenity, no representation was received from neighboring properties in relations to the proposed development. There's no residential properties within the nearby proximity of the application site. Therefore, it is considered there's no impact on residential amenity in terms of light, privacy, and overshadowing. Climate change. The development achieves a reduction of 111% carbon dioxide emissions on site, which is supported in principle. The proposed development also include renewable technologies such as source air heat pumps, solar panels to deliver the B Green requirement. The proposal will also include living roofs over the office building, which is supported in principle, subject to detailed design and condition. The development is within approximately 554 of the planned future Energetica extension network. The applicant will submit evidence of discussions with Energetica confirming the predicted demands, which are low in terms of the DEN connection. The proposal is in accordance with development plan policies and is supported by the Council's climate change officers. In terms of employment and training, as stated previously, the employment floor space would increase to 6,044 square meters. The proposed redevelopment of site will potentially increase the number of jobs from 15 to 200 full-time equivalent. The development will contribute about 51,408 a financial contribution towards the council to provide and procure support for the local people. The inclusive economy was also consulted and support the proposal of intensifying the existing employment space. In terms of Section 106 heads of terms, so there are carbon mitigations, commercial travel plan, employment initiatives, construction, logistic and management plan, parking management contribution, highways improvements, tree planting, and monitoring contributions. Thank you. And recommendation is for approval. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah, for that. So do committee members, so Councillor Brennan?
I just have a very simple question about the greening. So your trees in front, is that the maximum amount of trees that you could put in front? Because I know that it's contributing to putting trees on other roads in other parts, but is that the maximum amount of trees that we could have grown in front of it?
At the moment, there's 2 trees which are being retained, and the Section 106 is going to allow us to get 6 more trees. But considering as well, they've also contributed some more trees within where the office areas are and the parking areas. So, I mean, they've improved. At the moment, as you went on site, there's hardly any trees. So for us as officers, it is a great improvement where it is. And considering all the schemes that have been approved recently, 18 West Road, they're also going to be planting trees, and they're quite close to each other. So there is, I mean, according to us as officers, we think it's an improvement, and it is enough trees. Because it's an industrial area as well. So, you know, we've pushed as much as we can get. And the fact that we're getting a contribution towards trees is, you know, it's something that's an improvement and is considered acceptable.
I'll just remind you all to switch your mics off and on as appropriate, please. Don't leave them on all the time. Councillor Rice, please.
It's just a few small points. In respect of employment, the majority of employment on these sites are warehouse employments. By that I mean, the workers only load and unload materials, pack and unpack bulky items. There doesn't appear to be any scheme in place to upskill these workers. One doesn't hope they spend their whole life lifting things off the back of a lorry. What good is that? Okay. Another point I want to make in terms of Spurs parking. Spurs use the car park facilities, not really car park facilities, use the facilities such as these for parking of coaches bringing supporters or otherwise from wherever. What about the parking arrangements on event days? And I keep saying this. The officer talked about materials and made a great play about it. But where are the materials that we as members can look and judge whether it's suitable for the locality? What is it that officers seem to be hiding away materials? What's the point?
Thank you. Maurice, I'll bring you in on the car parking facilities first. please.
Sure. Good evening, Chair. Maurice Richard, Head of Transport and Travel. Councillor Rice, in answer to your question about Spurs and event day parking, I think this proposal will allow Spurs to get more coaches in, because what we're doing is consolidating the number of crossovers that's currently accessing the site, reinstating the footways and put additional bays in. So this will be an improvement on the situation. It won't change the current setup for Spurs, so it'll have no impact, but if required, can improve the existing situation.
Okay, thank you. Richard, materials, please.
Yes, yeah, Councillor Rice, I know you would always frequently ask for this, and we do where we can. We are increasingly asking for applicants to bring some samples, physical samples of their materials. These sort of industrial developments, they're in a hurry, you know, they want things moving fast. And also one of the natures of the building industry is that materials like bricks are not consistently available. So it's a matter of what bricks that are appropriate to appearance when they're ready to build, that we agree by condition. So it's much more difficult to get it approved by the planning committee, because it's likely to be months before the bricks can be actually purchased for the contractor. So they don't know at the stage when they're before the planning committee what bricks are available that they would be able to buy and secure to build this development with, which is the real problem. I think the other materials are fairly generic, you know, like sheet metal and things like that, and the timber cladding, very much a specialist material of this developer, which they've demonstrated with a quite detailed set of photos of their other timber cladding, where you can also see the same silver sheet metal on. I don't know whether they are helpful to you.
And then the upskilling, the employment, yeah, the upskilling. Can anyone come in?
Thank you. So with upskilling, I would say that the employees that we would expect on site are a mix of logistic experts and also office workers. And the employment initiatives that we are securing a contribution towards in the Section 106 is helping towards training, and is also securing a portion to be for local residents. So it won't be 100%, but it will be supporting and going towards that.
Thank you, Councillor Emery.
Thank you, Chair. You mentioned in the introduction that one of the other properties that had recently been developed was up for rent. Has this been available for some time? Is there any concern over this area struggling finding businesses to take on the rental?
Yeah, so when we went out on site visit on Friday, we noticed that there is a sign for rent, and also there are businesses already operating now. Yeah.
Councillor O'Donnell, I'll bring you all in. Councillor O'Donnell.
Okay, thanks. My question was about a road safety audit and whether one's been carried out. It's particular in relation to this slide and the access for lorries. I think you said earlier that lorries will exit forward, but actually go into the loading bay backwards. And as you can see from this slide, the lorries aren't going directly into the loading bay. They're actually going underneath at the West Road. They're going underneath the building. Now, if they're reversing, it would mean that they would need to pull out into West Green and then reverse, where we saw on Friday how busy West Road is. So has this been tested with a road safety audit? Thank you.
Maurice, shall I bring you in for that one?
Yeah, sure, Chair. The answer to that is the stage 1 and 2 road safety audit is done in the detailed design. All the lorries will be able to turn within the site and enter and leave in forward gear, What we will be doing the safety audit on is the entrance and the change to the highways network. So in general, what you're looking at here is the visibility displays to the left, to the right, and forward visibility. So when we design the scheme with the applicant, what we have to make sure is that there's sufficient forward visibility for all those cars approaching the access. And also any lorries coming out will have a good visibility to the left and to the right of the exit to make sure they can see pedestrians either side. It is not uncommon to what exists currently on West Road, Brentwood Road, in terms of having large crossovers and lorries entering and leaving. The only difference here is where they're going under the building, the undercroft. We need to make sure that we have sufficient visibility, which means it may be much wider than the normal one, but it's something we can cover off as part of the design. So we've looked at it initially with our highways team, and as part of our due diligence in terms of the new layout, we'll get it tested by an independent safety auditor.
Just to follow up, thank you for that. That seemed slightly different to what we would. You mentioned earlier that vehicles will reverse out.
Sorry, not onto the public highway. So there's two things. There's loading bays within the site. They'll reverse into the loading bays. But from the swerve path we've seen, that will take place on their site, which we don't normally do a safety audit for their site. The audit we're looking at is the impact on the public highway, not what takes place within their site.
Any questions on this, Councillor Bevan?
Yeah, regarding the timber, I mean, in the past we banned timber because we've had timber cladding in the past that looks after a few months a complete disaster because it's so cheap. So I'm wondering, is there a condition that we can put on that the timber quality is of the highest quality so that it will maintain its looks for many, many years? That's my first point. And the second point is the highways. There's going to be lots of 106 monies coming from this road because of all the developments. We need to make sure that it's spent as one project so that the whole road gets upgraded to a decent standard in one go, not by bits and pieces. And then my last point is, I don't know if the developers are here, but the quality review panel report on this scheme, there's over 20 recommendations and every single one has been accepted, apart thing about the timber. So if the developers are here, I'd like to thank them for that. And also, I think the quality review panel should be made aware that I think it's incredibly impressive and they've all been accepted, which is amazing.
Thank you, Councillor Bevan, for that. So the quality of the cladding, Richard.
Yes, I mean, we were very sceptical at first as well when they came forward proposing timber cladding, and we emphasised in our pre-app with them that the applicants that we would not normally agree to timber cladding, and we had had very bad experiences of it in the past. But they were pretty insistent that it's part of their corporate identity, and they have extensive experience. We have a standard condition which will require details and physical samples of the materials, and we will make sure that that is thoroughly inspected in this case, and we will make sure that the timber cladding detailing and specification and so on is very thorough and very sound, so that the timber will retain its quality of appearance. We know that it's already going to be raised up off the ground by a whole story, so there's very, very little chance of water damage from splashback from the ground, which is one of the common reasons why timber cladding goes wrong. And we'll make sure that detailing of things like parapets and sills and window heads is very thorough to avoid any damage to the timber cladding in that respect, and that the timber cladding is well preserved and well treated to retain its appearance.
Richard, thank you. So I've got highways. Did you want to come back on that point first of all, Councillor Bevan, on the cladding?
No, I'm satisfied with the assurance.
And I've got highways. Maurice?
Yes, thanks, Chair. We will try, Councillor Bevan, to coordinate the works as a single project. The problem we have here is different timescales and different requirements and occupation. So you may well give planning permission to this site, and the developer, I hope, will build it in time. However, another developer may go ahead and build theirs, and we can't delay the implementation of their works because it will delay them occupying the site, which means we'll have a vacant premises and probably not doing ourselves justice in terms of jobs and the economy. What we'll try to do in terms of highways, we'll make sure we are delivering an enhanced scheme, in that we'll try and get our trees in, we'll try and get as best quality material as we can as part of 278 to deliver some public benefit in terms of uplifting the local industrial area. But I think coordinate it as one big scheme, would love to do it, but in terms of the different planning permissions, different occupation times and timescales, it will not be possible. We'll have that discussion with the various developers about their coordination in terms of the delivery. I think, as Sarah indicated before, we've got one unit that's already built, already occupied. We've done the works there. We have the West Road, Brentwood Road units, which we are entering the 278 with those guys. And we'll try and keep the design as consistent as possible. So it's essentially almost like a jigsaw where you deliver in different elements at different points, but it will deliver an overall enhancement.
Thank you for that. And then the section 106 Spenters 1 project. That's that one. And the QRP, the 20, are the developers here? No? Okay, all right, well, anyway, we'll note your comments, Councillor Bevan. So Councillor Min.
My colleague, Councillor Bevan, has picked up the cladding issues, which I'm grateful for. There's two things. One is, I think, it's an informal cafe, I noticed when we went on our site visit. And although it's an informal cafe and probably shouldn't have been there, wherever it was incredibly popular in the locality. And it obviously was a kind of driver for people to come to that space and get something decent to eat. And actually, it was a really nice, the people who run it were really, really nice as well. So I wondered about the possibility of maintaining a cafe or something there, because it feels like work. And I'm a bit anxious that they would obviously be losing their work entirely if the cafe disappears. That's one thing. The second thing, I was a little bit concerned. I didn't get what you were saying, Maurice, about Spurs and the coaches. Are we saying that they will be relocated? No, because there is an issue with coaches anyway already, and I'm a little bit anxious about that. Thirdly, I'm a bit worried about the access. And you mentioned, Sarah, that the 18 car parking space goes to 21 or 22, I can't remember exactly. But if you've got 200 workers or up to 200 workers, you're still talking a drop in the ocean, considering the access. There's a lot of use of residential roads, and I know there's going to be a CPZ on Willoughby Lane, thank God. So that will make a difference for the residents, but I'm a bit anxious about where these people will be parking. There's a little bit worried, not just for this particular site, but just generally in that whole area. Parking is a really big, premium issue in that area. Finally, I just wanted to be reassured that there's not going to be any loading in the front, and there'll be no space there for loading and unloading, which would be great, because at the moment it's quite chaotic with the loading.
So I'll take the question about the cafe, and then I'll let the transport officer answer the access and the parking. So in terms of the cafe, it's, first of all, as I said on site, it doesn't actually have planning permission. They just, they just slotted themselves in there. That's number one. Number two, the developer who's redeveloping the site has not incorporated that as part of this development. And that's not something they've asked for. And thirdly, there is a cafe on Brentwood Road. One of the buildings has got a cafe there, which was part of that planning permission. So in terms of this planning permission, the developer hasn't incorporated a cafe, unfortunately. And it's going to be relocated within the area if people still want to go to it. But it's not part of this development, and it hasn't been included as part of the proposal.
Okay, thank you, Sarah, for that. And Maurice, if you can address the other questions, please.
Thank you, Chair. So, Councillor, in terms of the 22 car parking spaces, it's been assessed in line with the London Plan requirements. It does fulfill those requirements in terms of London Plan. We note the issue about parking pressures, and we've secured, or asked to be secured as part of this, some money towards looking at reviewing parking management measures in the area, which could lead to a CPZ. Is something that we need to do. I think overall, as part of the travel plan and also the parking management contribution and our policy to promote travel by more sustainable motor transport, we are trying to limit the amount of car parking that's provided as part of these development proposals. So we're looking at literally a minimum as possible. So although the PTOL is 2 and low, you are within walking distance of Northumberland Park Station and the high road, and they're providing cycle parking and also cargo bikes. So we would like to try and promote the sustainable modes of transport to and from this site, which we'll do as part of the travel plan. We've secured not only a travel plan, but travel plan monitoring contribution. So this will be monitored with the developer to make sure they're implementing showers and all the measures so we can promote travel by sustainable modes of transport. In terms of the safety aspect, again, which I covered off, we'll make sure it goes through the normal Section 278 process where we'll design it up and try to limit what are parking on the front of the building. What we have to bear in mind is that this is an industrial area. So very much if this developer doesn't choose to park on this section of West Road, there's the current existing business who may choose to do that. So as part of the design process, we'll have to look at loading bays that currently exist. I think what the developer is proposing is aspirational. I must be applauded for that, in that they are returning what is currently a large extent of drop curbs and vehicular servicing, which is on street, to provide on-site servicing, which means we can actually improve that public realm by providing footways and trees and try to safeguard that space. But we will definitely need to take into consideration the existing requirements of West Road as an industrial area in terms of parking restriction as part of any traffic management order, which is subject to consultation. So we can't absolutely promise you there will be no servicing on street because that's the nature of West Road. What we can try to do is improve it as much as possible, provide a dedicated pedestrian facility, which we have now. So instead of you having cars parked in the pavement servicing, they won't be there because there'll be footways and be ticketed. So if they'll provide it in the carriageway where they're supposed to be.
Thank you. Okay, so any more questions? Did you want to come back on, Councillor Min? No, I thought you indicated that was all. No, okay. Any more questions? No, okay. Thank you. All right, so I'd like to ask Catherine Smith to confirm the proposal with a summary of any change.
Thank you, Chair. The proposal before you this evening is for demolition of all the buildings and structures on site, and the construction of a building for flexible Class B to general industrial, Class B8 storage and distribution, and Class EG3 light industrial uses with ancillary offices, associated service yard, an access point, car parking and landscape planting. The recommendation is to grant subject to conditions and a legal agreement. There are no changes arising from the discussion this evening, but I draw your attention to the addendum on this item. Thank you.
Okay, so we will now vote on this. As Catherine says, the recommendation is to grant. All those in favour, please show. Okay, all right, that's unanimous. Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. I will, whilst everyone's changing over, I'll give a 5-minute comfort break if anyone wants that whilst we're changing. Okay, right, thank you. So we are now on to item 9, which is 13 Bedford Road, N22 7AU, and that's pages 163 to 370 in the agenda pack. Now, Councillor Rossetti has emailed myself and the committee asking for a deferral on this this item. But I have considered all of the emails. I considered what you said, Councillor Rossetti, and I have decided to go ahead with it this evening with this application. So I'll hand over to Val, the planning officer, to give the presentation, please.
Thank you, Chair. The site is located at 13 Bedford Road, and the proposal is for the demolition of the existing building and the erection of a new mixed-use development up to 5 stories high with commercial uses, use class E, at ground floor, 12 self-contained flats, use class C3, to upper levels, and plant room at basement level, provision of cycle parking, refuse, recycling and storage, lift overrun, plant enclosure and PV panels at roof level. This is the site location plan. The site highlighted in red is located on the corner of the junction of Bedford Road and Alexandra Park Road, and is directly opposite the railway alignment for the main line from King's Cross train station. This slide shows an aerial view of the site highlighted in red. And to the north is a 4-story mansion block. To the south, fronting Bedford Road, is the row of 2-story Edwardian houses. Immediately west of the site, fronting Alexandra Park Road, is a car park followed by a 2-story purpose-built block of flats, and further west is mainly 2-story semi-detached houses. So this slide is a photo of the site, and the site is currently occupied by Alexandra Auto Repairs Limited, formerly known as Alexandra Motors, which operates as an MOT and car repairs centre. It comprises a 2-story building fronting Bedford Road with a glazed frontage at ground level, together with a hard standing area for the parking of cars. And the existing building is of limited architectural merit and is surrounded by a wide range of building styles. And due to the sloping land levels, the building reads as a 1-story building along the Alexandra Park Road frontage. This is the planning policy map. The site is within a designated critical drainage area. The site itself does not form part of any site allocation and can be described as a brownfield windfill site. The site does not comprise of any statutory or locally listed buildings and is not located within a conservation area. Alexandra Palace and Park Conservation Area is located to the south, and Wood Green Common Conservation Area is located to the east on the other side of the railway line. Alexandra Palace, which is located within the Alexandra Palace and Park Conservation Area, is a Grade 2 listed building which lies within a Grade 2 registered park and garden known as Alexandra Park. The site is located opposite an ecological corridor which runs along the railway line. Alexandra Park to the south is designated within Metropolitan Open Land, Local Nature Reserve and Site of Importance for Nature Conservation Borough Grade 1. The proposal can be broken down as follows. The new mixed-use building is proposed to be 5 stories in height, consisting of 2 separate flexible commercial floor space, Class C units at ground floor, comprising of 250 square metres overall. The residential elements on the upper floors will consist of 12 residential homes, The proposed new homes will consist of 3 one-bed, 6 two-bed and 3 three-bed dwellings and include 1 wheelchair accessible home. The proposal will include separate commercial residential cycle parking and separate commercial residential refuse stores. The proposal will include soft landscaping in the form of planters, green wall and green roofs. Private and communal amenity space provision for the residential homes is also proposed, and the proposal will also include a basement that will be 73 square metres in area and consist of the plant and service room. In terms of consultation responses, concerns have been raised by the Muswell Hill and Fortisgreen Association, Alexandra Park and Palace Charitable Trust, and neighbouring properties as part of the Council's consultation on the proposal. We have received an email from the Alexandra Park and Palace Charitable Trust about a temporary prohibition of traffic order related to Bedford Road, which officers have considered. And there are 7 letters of support that were received as part of the Council's consultation on the proposal, and this is all included in section 5 of the officer's report. The considerations include principle of the development, affordable housing, heritage impact, high quality design, quality of accommodation, landscaping, impact on amenity, transport and sustainability. This is the proposed basement plan. The basement will be 73 square metres in area. The basement accommodates the plant and service room, and further details of the basement development is secured through a planning condition. This slide shows the proposed ground floor plan. 2 separate commercial units are located on the ground floor, comprising of 250 square metres overall. The commercial bike and refuse store and the residential refuse store are located directly off Bedford Road, and the residential cycle store would be accessed internally. Access to the upper floor residential homes would be via a lift. In terms of the principle of development, the existing building will be replaced with a mixed-use development comprising of new residential homes and employment floor space. In terms of employment for the scheme, the site operates as an MOT car repairs centre, which falls under use class sui generis, which means that it does not fall under any of the standard planning use classes. The existing use is sui generis as it does not strictly fall under use class B. However, it does provide employment. To compensate for the loss of the existing employment use, the proposal includes the 250 square metres of flexible commercial Class C floor space, which would not only replace, but which would exceed the existing amount of employment floor space currently on site. The Class C floor space is designed to be flexible and appeal to a range of commercial occupiers. The within Class E of the use class order. The site location away from the local town centre on Palace Gates Road has meant that most traditional town centre uses would not be attracted to the location of the site. The site is in close proximity to neighbouring residential properties and would therefore generate low footfall, particularly for retail uses. Operators would only be attracted to the proposed units if they are able to sustain business directly from residents in the development as well as in the existing surrounding community. The commercial floor space will potentially generate 10 to 12 jobs, and there are currently 4 employers on the site. And the replacement floor space provides a valuable contribution to the employment floor space and employment opportunities in the borough. And the scheme would result in local labour training initiatives. The applicant has investigated a range of alterations to the shopfront to enable its flexibility so that it can appeal to a broad range of occupiers. This plan elevation shows how the commercial units can be split into 3, 4 and 5 smaller commercial units. And the alteration to the shopfront demonstrates how the fixed glazing can convert into openable doors, which is highlighted in red. These minor changes to the shopfront, however, will require planning permission. In terms of residential for the scheme, the proposal would introduce 12 self-contained homes that will contribute to much needed housing stock and the borough's housing target. In terms of affordable housing, an independent viability assessment was submitted for the scheme and was reviewed by a third party. The agreed viability position was that 3 shared ownership units, which equates to 25% affordable housing, and a further appraisal was carried out on how many socially rented housing homes could be delivered on site. It was concluded that the scheme with social rent homes with an updated appraisal assumption would generate a deficit, meaning that 0 socially rented homes could be delivered and the 3 shared ownership homes is the best offer. The applicants have submitted evidence which demonstrates that registered providers are not willing to take on 3 shared ownership units. And the council are aware that in this current market, registered providers are struggling to take on affordable homes due to the current economic climate. The council has also confirmed that they do not wish to acquire the shared ownership unit. The lack of interest in acquiring the affordable housing units is considered to be an exceptional circumstance which would allow the council to consider an alternative through a payment in lieu as supported by policy. And the viability review concluded that a payment in lieu of £127,084 is the maximum reasonable amount based on 3 shared ownership units with an early and late stage review. And the early and late stage review mechanism will be secured by a legal agreement. This slide shows the proposed first floor plan. There are 4 flats per core on the first floor. 1 wheelchair accessible home is located at this level. It's highlighted in blue. Each flat would have private amenity space in the form of a balcony, and the corner family home to the north has a much larger balcony. Green roofs are located at first floor level in front of the deck access. And the green roof in front of flat 2 can be used for communal amenity space. The 1 and 2 square metre shortfall in balcony size of flat 3 on the first floor and flat 6 and 9 on the second and third floor, which are non-family dwellings, is compensated by this communal amenity space. And the green roof closest to bedroom 3 of flat 4 will be non-accessible. This slide shows a proposed second and third floor plan, and there are 3 flats per core on the second and third floor. Note how the corner balconies of the family dwellings of the north are very large. The proposed development has been carefully designed to mitigate overlooking and potential loss of privacy to the rear gardens by limiting the number of windows to habitable rooms in the rear elevation of the proposed building. Where these windows are secondary bedroom windows, they will be obscurely glazed and only openable at 1.7 metres high from floor level. And bathroom windows will be obscure glazed, and the balconies would have 1.8 metre high privacy screens. In addition, the green wall system will screen the rear facing windows. This slide shows the proposed 4th floor plan and roof plan. 2 residential homes are located on the 4th floor. The largest balconies are located at this level, and the top floor rear facing windows will be obscure glazed and only openable at 1.7 metres high from floor level. The roof level will accommodate the solar panels integrated within the green roof, and the louvre plant enclosure is also located at this level. These are illustrative views of the proposed building along Bedford Road. The building is 5 stories in height, with a recessed top floor and 2 commercial units at ground level. The height, although 1 story taller than the adjacent properties, it conforms well to the established character and acts as a highly compatible neighbour to the adjoining sites. The corner of the building at the junction of Bedford Road and Alexandra Park Road is articulated through a series of step-back balconies. And due to the top floor being recessed, the largest balconies are located at this level. The new building will be predominantly faced in red brick, and the top floor would be faced in grey powder coated aluminium, which scales down its bulk and appearance. The brickwork is complemented by grey powder coated aluminium windows and doors, and the generous shop front activates the street frontage. The design has evolved through multiple iterations, incorporating feedback from both the quality review panel and planning officers, resulting in improvements to its massing, architectural expression, and detailing. This slide shows the existing and proposed view from the junction of Alexandra Park Road and Bedford Road. This slide shows the residential entrance, which has been carefully designed to clearly distinguish it from the other entrances. This is a rear view of the proposed building from Alexandra Park Road. These are CGIs of various views. In terms of the impact on nearby heritage assets, the proposed development would have a neutral impact on the significance of the listed building, nearby conservation areas, and the listed registered park and garden. In terms of soft landscaping, the proposal will consist of planters integrated into each balcony. Green roofs will be incorporated. The rear elevation of the building would comprise of a green wall, which would be achieved through a system of planters at each level. Vertical support cables will facilitate the growth of climbing plants, and the applicant has agreed to carry out a feasibility study to explore the provision of street trees in front of the site along Bedford Road, and details of the landscaping can be secured by the imposition of a condition to secure a high quality scheme. In terms of impact on amenity, there will be no unacceptable impact on amenity of nearby occupiers in regards to loss of outlook or privacy. The proposed development has been carefully designed to mitigate overlooking and potential loss of privacy to the gardens and windows of the neighbouring properties. There will be no unacceptable impact on daylight and sunlight to residents of neighbouring properties at number 10 and 15 Bedford Road and 357 Alexandra Park Road. In terms of transport and parking, the site's P-TOW is 5, which is good. The scheme is a car-free development. 1 blue badge parking bay on street outside of the development on Bedford Road, dedicated to the resident of the wheelchair home within the development, is to be secured by a legal agreement. And the commercial component of the scheme provides 1 long-term cycle parking space and 1 short-term cycle parking space. And the residential component of the scheme provides 23 long-term cycle parking spaces and 2 short-term cycle parking spaces. In terms of servicing and delivery vehicles will use the on-street curbside. While making deliveries to the site, they will need to utilise the existing double yellow lines that only allow for loading, unloading to take place for a limited amount of time. And a 10.2 metre refuse vehicle is able to effectively use similar practices as delivery vehicles for short periods of time, while the council's operatives retrieve bins from the stores. This is the Section 106 head of terms. Accordingly, the proposal is recommended for approval. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Valerie. Thank you. Any questions? And Councillor Emery.
I've got 2 questions for the council first off, but is the applicant here? Yeah, okay, super. I've got a few more coming from that one then. The addendum lists changes to the daylight sunlight report for 357 Alexandra Park Road. Were these changes due to the original designation of the room as not being habitable, or is there some other mistake there, need for that change? My second question is in terms of the condition 22 to do with the living roof. Does this also apply to the green wall, or does this come under a separate section?
So yeah, so condition 22, the living roof relates to the green roof and the green wall. And then you also have condition 5, which relates to landscaping. So they cross over.
Right, did you want to come back on, it's a separate.
First question.
Okay, I'll bring you back in.
Oh, sorry. My first question wasn't answered.
Your first question,
It was
sorry.
on the 357 daylight standard report.
Right,
So yeah, the applicants have produced a revised day and sunlight report, which identified some additional issues. I don't think they were aware originally that those windows in the side of the first property neighbouring on Alexandra Park Road were residential. We understand they're second bedroom windows. But yeah, I mean, I think we're fairly confident that there will be some impact on those second bedroom windows. The impacts are not unreasonable.
Councillor O'Donovan?
Thank you. Thank you for your presentation. You quite rightly said that Bedford Road is closed, or that part of Bedford Road is closed when there's an event at Alexandra Palace, sometimes a day, sometimes longer than a day. I think it was nearly the whole week last time. Although on page 349 of the report pack, it only talks about the closure of Alexandra Park Road. I know that there's been concerns in relation to the demolition and construction. If that takes place during when the road is closed, and I understand that there will be, although it hasn't been decided yet, there will be a demolition and construction logistics plan. Yes, maybe you could say something more about the timing in relation to when that will be prepared. There's also the ongoing difficulty, and I know there's other houses in the area that residents, when the Bedford Road is closed, I understand that if there is somebody at where the road is closed, they will allow people in if they can prove that they live in that area. Is that correct? And do you think there's going to be any extra ill effects to the fact that this property, this new building is built on a road that is closed for some of the year? Thank you.
Maurice.
Chair, thank you very much. Maurice Richards, Head of Transport and Travel. So Councillor Donovan, every traffic management order prepared and actually needs to take into consideration access for residents to their property. I think any road closure proposed in the future as part of Alexandra Palace will have to make sure there is a level of access for residents. This will be the same for the existing garage, who will have a level of access to their MOT service and their customers, and that will have to provide them some access there. In some circumstances where you have a natural, as recommended by the police, for safety and crowd movement, then at that time when you have mass crowd movement for safety and anti-terrorism reasons, we may not allow any access at all. But in preparing a construction management plan, which is a condition attached to this application, the developer will have to take into consideration any road closures that are proposed as part of the Alexandra Palace scheme for the construction. And therefore, if there's a natural in place and the borough commander directs that there's no traffic on that day, then they will not be able to do any deliveries on that day. So they'll have to plan around it, whether they bring in the materials the day before or the week before to sustain the development. That's the case. In the case of the new development, where it's a car-free development, it's less of an issue because you still have access by foot. And the majority of these residents, all but the one wheelchair accessible units, will be accessing the development by foot. Therefore, it only comes down to the servicing of that development and deliveries to any commercial unit, which will then have to allow servicing and delivery as part of the service and delivery plan, where there's a condition also attached to planning permission to say, how are you going to service this development? How are you going to provide deliveries for this development? We also need to take in consideration that these closures that we're talking about in Alexandra Palace are not on a weekly basis. It's not similar to what we are experiencing at Tottenham, where we close it more often than Alexandra Palace. And we still need to take into consideration how service and delivery needs to be provided to those shops. And considering the frequency at which we did in Tottenham recently for the concerts and everything else, I think shops do plan around these things, residents do plan around these things, essentially making sure there's advance notice given for those road closures, so residents and others can plan around these closures.
Councillor Rice?
This argument around tenancies, I'm not sure I understand what's being argued there in respect of whether it should be one type of tenancy or another. Could you just run me through that consideration, please?
And just while Val is getting that slide back up, just to check, are you talking about the shared ownership versus social rent versus payment in lieu issue? Yep, thanks. So we're just getting the slide up and Valerie will talk through that.
So yes, so the agreed viability was 3 shared ownerships, which equates to 25% affordable housing. However, a further appraisal was carried out to see whether socially rented homes could be delivered. But in this instance, it was concluded that the scheme with social rented homes, with the updated appraisal, meant that the scheme would generate a deficit, meaning there would be no social rented homes, meaning no socially rented homes could be provided.
We had an understanding, if not an agreement, that any units over 10, there should be affordable housing within those 10.
Yes, that's correct. And the applicant submitted a viability assessment, which was reviewed by a third party, and hence why we've come to this conclusion that 3 shared ownership units can be provided. However, registered providers, the applicants provided evidence to show that registered providers are not interested in taking on the shared ownership units. And also an appraisal was run and it's shown that socially rented homes cannot be delivered on site because it results in a deficit.
And Chair, if I may.
Always is the case, can't be living on site. Why is it that it always is the case, your neck of the woods, when you get situations such as this, it can never deliver social ownership, always can't deliver at the cost.
Thank you, Councillor Rice. I've just let Rob off.
Thank you, Councillor. So Councillor Rice, you are quite right. The policy is to, in the first instance, have affordable housing on site, absolutely, and that's what we work towards. And you can see the viability work has started off on that basis. But the policy also says that where there are legitimate viability issues and circumstances, that there can instead be a payment in lieu. And that is the case here. It's not been possible to secure a registered provider on site. The council itself is not interested in purchasing the affordable units for its own use. So therefore, we look at a payment in lieu, and the policy does account for that. So this is policy compliant. It has followed the policy. We've looked at on-site first. It's not possible. So there's a payment in lieu, and the policy does allow for that.
Are you saying that it can't be provided on the policy, but the policy also leads to a payment for default of failing to provide social ownership, social tenancy on that site? So what's the payment? Has that been agreed? Was it under discussion? What?
Yes, so the payment in lieu is 127,084. which is the maximum reasonable amount based on the 3 shared ownership units.
Did you want to come back again? Okay, all right. So I've got Councillor Brennan, then Councillor Warren.
I'm just interested in the rubbish collection where you're saying that our big rubbish vans are going to be parking on the double yellow lines and following the rules that anybody else has to park for a really short time, so work quickly and get off the double yellow lines. I'm just imagining when we have the knitting, sometimes we have long traffic jams into Alexandra Palace, and where you're asking them to park, as I understand, but you might correct me, is possibly on Bedford Road. Am I wrong? Or are they going to be parking on Bedford Road, which is on the way to Alexandra Palace, where we could have traffic jams going to various events during the day? And I'm thinking, have we thought through whether that's going to cause traffic chaos? These two things don't seem to be very compatible. And just totally as a comment, I think this is enormous. The building looks enormous on the pictures. It doesn't look small, it doesn't look in keeping, it looks enormous. And I would like to know how officers think it fits. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Chair. So yes, Councillor, we are proposing where we have an existing drop curve into the site to reinstate the footway, and as part of that to put in single yellows or double yellows to allow for temporary collection of rubbish. I mean, generally in terms of the plans is that the management company will bring them to the curb on the day. Rubbish truck will stop for 5-10 minutes, load them up, and they go off. This is a very small development in the very nature of the scheme, and I can't see it causing any traffic chaos as such in terms of our analysis of it. I think if we're talking about a 300 unit development and probably 60 or 70 bins and a dwelling time of 20 or 30 minutes, then we can start talking about a traffic chaos. I think what we're talking about is a small development by nature of it, 6-7 bins, probably 2 different collection days, one for your general waste and a recycle, which is, is small amount in terms of what we're talking about dwelling time and loading on. I think we can always work with our refuse team to say, okay, and we have done that in the past where we have school streets. Can we try and time these things that we're not doing it in the peak, so school time, and can we do it a little bit early? So I think these are things we can manage within our own schedule to make sure we're not blocked up in the network. So in our analysis, it's not something here where we think we need a dedicated loading bay, where we'll then lose residents' car parking to provide a loading bay, which is only used probably for the best part of half an hour the whole week. That's caused more issues in terms of how we actually divvy up our curbside. And we have a new curbside strategy will be going out for consultation in September, which will just look at that pressure on our curbside in terms of the various uses and how we actually prioritize our curbsides for service and delivery. And it's very small development, not likely to lead into any issues. It will be no different from somebody coming to get their MOT and somebody's in the bay and they park temporarily over the crossover. So no issues there for us.
Okay, thank you. Richard, about the size.
Yes, scale and height, I think we'd probably call it. Yeah, I mean, I think it's officers agree and the QRP agree that it's a reasonable and appropriate height and scale for this site. Yes, it represents an increase of height of 1 story more than the existing neighbour to its immediate north, and the further retail parades up along Bedford Road up to the junction with Crescent Road. But I think we agree that those are a very successful little local shopping centre. It's a really very accessible site. It's got excellent public transport accessibility. The scale drops in this series of stepped terraces at the southern end on the corner of Alexandra Park Road, which responds to the height and scale of the reduced scale and height of the very much more suburban houses along Alexandra Park Road and the rest of Bedford Road. Although I think we would never dream of imagining that such low density development in such an accessible and vibrant location as that today And you know, when those sort of development properties are redeveloped, they tend to be developed at greater scale as well. So I think we think that it's a very appropriate. But yes, it's appropriate, but towards the top end of what was appropriate, but not by any means excessive. But at least that this size of development does mean that we get some affordable housing contribution. You know, any smaller, it would fall below the 10-unit threshold probably. Do we want that? And also, you know, there is a housing crisis in London, and we do need more homes, Haringey especially.
Thank you. Councillor Worrell, thank you.
Thank you. 2 points. The payment in lieu that we're receiving for affordable housing, can we spend that on anything? Because obviously what we most acutely need is social rent. So yeah, I sort of echo comments of disappointment that it wasn't possible to deliver any here, but I feel that the money in lieu would be more usefully used on social rent rather than shared ownership. Separate question, I just wondered if officers could clarify what the status is of the BREEAM statement, because I think it's in the climate change officer's comments that it needed to be provided, although it does look like maybe like an older, earlier version was provided in the 2023 comments. But yeah, then I'm just a bit confused, because then it's also mentioning that it's going to be secured by condition. So I'm just wondering whether that has been submitted now and whether it achieves what it needs to achieve. Thanks.
Rob Shizelski. Oh, sorry.
Thank you, Chair. I'll just answer the question about how we can spend the Section 106. So yes, we can spend it on any affordable housing, so it doesn't need to be tied to shared ownership. The shared ownership reference is just how that's been used to calculate the figure. But once we get the Section 106 money in, it is for affordable housing in the local area. So so we can spend it on any tenure of affordable housing, which would include social rent. And generally speaking, we're very proactive in working very hard to spend every penny of our affordable housing Section 106 monies, which largely goes to the council housing delivery programme to build new council housing at a social rent. And usually where funding can't be secured through grant from the GLA, for example, the Section 106 money is used, for example, family-sized homes. So every penny is used wisely on generally social rent housing. So that's what it would be spent on. Thank you.
And the green statement. Right, okay.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Alice Choi, a climate change officer. So currently they have submitted the sufficient information. So on BREEAM, they have achieved an excellent, target excellent, aiming to achieve outstanding. So we are happy with the its policy compliance. Thank you.
Okay, all right, thank you. Any more questions? Oh, Councillor O'Donovan.
Okay, thank you. One of the comments that was made was in relation to the sill, saying that sills should be used to walk locally. They're talking particularly around the local park, but in what other ways can the sill money be used to improve the lives of people who live locally? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So spending sill monies is not a formal decision for this committee. It's ultimately decided through sort of cabinet powers, but the types of things sill can be spent on are things like green and open space, play space, transport infrastructure and sort of highways and road infrastructure, pedestrian and cycling infrastructure, health facilities, community facilities, planting, public realm, that the list goes on. So it can be spent on things like that. Later this year, the council will be launching a consultation on neighbourhood sill and how that can be spent in local areas, as well as cabinet makes decisions on strategic sill. So there's a long list of things that it could be spent on. It's not formally a decision for this item right now, though.
Sorry, I made a mistake right at the start. I should have said what sill is, which is the social infrastructure levy.
Yes, community infrastructure levy. Yeah. Thanks for the clarification.
Councillor Bevan.
Yeah, so the affordable housing contribution, So when this valuation is worked out, we take the value of the existing use, and to give the owner an incentive to change the use, he is allowed to increase that value by a certain percentage. First of all, can you tell me what that percentage is? And then in this paper, originally it said 207k contribution, and then afterwards it's gone down to 127k. I think that was different to the figure that you quoted. So can you give us that percentage they're allowed to increase? Why the change? Because I'm really concerned that this is, for a development of this size, this is a pittance, to be quite honest, for affordable housing.
In terms of your second question, which relates to the £207,158, the reason why that figure changed is because the applicant revised the affordable housing viability statement, providing further evidence and justification in relation to their appraisal and negotiations have since taken place between the applicant and the independent assessor, which is BNPP. And with that in mind, it was found that 3 shared ownership homes could be delivered, which equates to 25% affordable housing. And then that figure, the 3 shared ownership then equates to the payment in lieu amount of £127,084.
That's why did the council say they were interested in taking these 3 units on? Does somebody know the answer to that?
I'll just hold that for a minute, Councillor Rice. Why? So your first question.
The percentage increase allowed on the existing use value to enable these calculations.
Do we have that?
I don't know if I have that figure to hand, Councillor Bevan, but I can tell you that all the profit margins that were built into the viability appraisal by the developer, they were considered by BNPP, who's our consultant, and they agreed with those margins. So they're looking at a profit that's within a reasonable amount and not an excessive amount. So in terms of what the developer would achieve from the scheme, it's considered reasonable in terms of the overall viability assessment, and our viability consultants have agreed that.
Well, that's not quite the answer, is it? So what you're saying is officers don't know that the seller of the site increased the price by 50%, 10%, 25%, because I think officers should know that, because it obviously affects how much social housing, if any, can be provided. So you should know that figure on every application, on every calculation that's done. How much percentage increase was the seller allowed to apply to an existing use value?
So just to be clear, and I don't have the figure in front of me. I don't know if officers have the viability appraisal in front of them, but the methodology in terms of your concerns about land value and inflated land value, the whole process of the viability appraisal is to negate the effect of any possibility of inflated land value. It basically looks at an alternative, what's called existing use value plus, looking at existing land values in the area, has that appropriate amount added on, which is the bit that you're asking about. So it's regardless of what's been paid or not paid through a land transaction. So it negates any possible effect of sort of overinflated land prices. That's the whole point of doing what's called the residual land value appraisal, so that whatever situation has happened in terms of land transactions, we are capturing the maximum amount from that, and that is the concluded amount. And that's not just been put forward by the applicant, but it's been assessed by our own consultants working for us. We are the client to maximise the amount of affordable housing, and that's gone through a very thorough run through between the 3 parties involved to maximise that figure, and that is the conclusion of that. So that is the whole structure of why we have residual land value appraisals.
So your question, Councillor Rice, was why did the council not take up the option of the 3? Yes. Okay. Anyone? Rob.
Thank you, Chair. I can help with that one. So I can't speak for the council's housing service themselves, but I am aware they will do their own financial viability appraisal to see if purchasing the units from the developer and then the ongoing management and maintenance and letting of those units is financially viable. And I suspect because it's a small number of units, it doesn't give the best value for money for the council or is not financially viable and isn't the best in terms of managing those properties, the upkeep of them and making sure residents have a good satisfactory living environment. So it's a mixture of financial viability analysis and just general feasibility and management. And they would have looked at this and concluded, no, 3 units here does not provide the economies of scale that they would need to manage. They would rather have blocks with larger numbers of units. So I can't speak for the council housing service, but I suspect those are the reasons why they have not taken on these units in this case.
What you're telling me is the matters which would normally come into consideration in respect to such a development. But what you don't tell me is why. What particular reason out of all those various reasons applied?
And just to be clear, the reasons why are not a planning matter. It's been demonstrated that there are no takers for this registered provider housing, and that has been factored in. We've checked the evidence. We agree with that. We've gone through the viability appraisal. So the detailed reasons why or why not a council or registered provider haven't in the end taken up on that is not really a matter for consideration. We're assessing the proposal in front of us based on planning policy. Does it meet the planning policy? And as I explained earlier, they've gone through the process. We've thoroughly checked it. And whilst on-site affordable is preferable, it's been demonstrated that's not possible. So we've got the maximum reasonable amount of affordable housing through a payment in lieu. So that is in accordance with the adopted council policy. Could I ask, Chair, if it's possible, if Valerie or Catherine could talk about the early and late stage review mechanism as well, just to explain what they are to members and what the implications might be from those. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob. Before I move on to that, I think I might have the answer, Councillor Bevan, you've been looking for in terms of the premium. So the applicant.
Chair, on a point of order, this is meant to be a session where the councillors question the officers in respect to the development before them, not officers questioning officers.
Okay, let's just move on from that now. Thank you for that, Councillor Rice, but can you just continue, Catherine?
Thank you. Yes, so in terms of the premium, so the applicant's viability assessors assumed a 20% premium to incentivise the landowner to bring the site forward for development. When the viability review went to our assessors, BNPP, they took a 10% landowner premium as a reasonable amount, and the negotiations moved forward on that basis. So I think that is a helpful assessment from our viability assessors. In terms of early and late stage reviews, they are both mechanisms that can be applied in 106s to ensure that the maximum amount of affordable housing is delivered. And that would be, in this case, the likelihood would be that it would be an increase in terms of the amount of bill, the amount of financial contribution that would be made to this development within X number of months. It's either 24 or 36. And the late stage review would be set at a certain stage whereby there will be a review of the viability, and if there is any added value that has come forward in the meantime, if values have risen in terms of property, etc., then we have a chance to gain some more value out of the site, so that the contribution would increase. So both of those mechanisms are within the legal agreement for this application. So though members may be slightly discouraged by the 127,000, that is the maximum that is showing to be allowable at the moment, but there are chances in the future that could increase.
Okay, thank you for that. Let's move on. We'll note Councillor Rice's last comments. So thank you for that, all of you. Can we just move on now we have two objectors who've been waiting patiently. So I think there's Mr. Henry Simon and Ms. Ruth Cow. If you could come forward, Mr. Simon. Very stuffy. We haven't got, I don't think we've got air conditioning, but we can ask for some more windows to be opened. Can we ask? Thank you very much. Okay, so Mr. Simon and Ms. Cap, right. So I think the committee clerk has explained to you that you have 3 minutes each, and I will keep you to that, to the 3 minutes. That's been previously explained to you. Yes, okay. All right. So if you could just introduce yourselves, and you have. So it's you first, Mr. Simon, and your time starts now.
Hi, I'm Henry Simon. I live in Forest Lodge, neighbouring the site. I'm a little nervous, so I'm reading my statement. I'm happy to see that there is a fire statement that appears satisfactory to building control, but some of its main recommendations are not incorporated into the design. Quoting from the strategy, ancillary areas should not connect directly to the staircase. Significant design adjustment is expected so that the bike store, bin store, and basement staircase are accessed directly from the outside. But I note that these changes have not been made. On upper floors, doors swing across escape staircases, creating a risk of injury or blockages that could be lethal during a fire. Fire safety must not be a box-ticking exercise where basics are left until later. By failing to address this from the outset, I fear we're creating another Grenfell. New homes are needed to meet demand in Haringey, but of good quality, so they will last and not have to be replaced within a few years. Throughout these proposals, balconies, kitchens and storage are severely undersized against the national and London plan standards. The design doesn't meet wheelchair access requirements under the building regs, with insufficient space to manoeuvre around doors and communal doors swinging into the lift's landing area, where they will hit wheelchair users. We can't be creating substandard homes that will become future slums. It's great that the Quality Review Panel had a chance to review the design. However, while the green wall is being relied upon to protect the privacy of existing neighbours, quoting from the QRP, it is crucial that a landscape architect is appointed before the planning application is submitted to ensure that the green wall can be delivered and maintained. No landscape designer has been appointed. Recessed balconies to the east elevation and the green wall to the west elevation will lead to dingy rooms in the proposed building. The QRP recommended these were assessed, but the daylight report does not look at the proposed homes. The QRP proposed another meeting after their pre-app style recommendations were implemented. No second meeting has occurred. The officer's report to this committee makes 13 references to using conditions to secure the QRP's recommendations, reflecting a design that had not progressed sufficiently. How are we ensuring the design is of high quality if we ignore the QRP's advice? The inclusion of low carbon and biodiversity improvements is welcome, but they must be provided safely. The design does not provide safe maintenance access to green roofs or green wall planters 2 stories up, and PVs are too close together and too close to roof edges to be safely accessed. If these carbon saving measures are neglected, they'll become useless. If the green wall dies, then it will become an unattractive fire risk, protecting no one's privacy. Finally, the building looks like a single large block, ignoring the plot size of neighbouring properties. It closely follows the site boundary and builds a 3-storey wall less than 2.5 metres from multiple existing windows to the rear of Palace Mansions. Why not provide townhouses above the shop units that would meet Haringey's requirement for 69% of new homes to have 3 bedrooms? These could have roof terraces as quality outdoor space and be of a scale that responds to the local context. In conclusion, the site is clearly underdeveloped at present, but these proposals are poor and potentially dangerous. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Simon. So Ms. Cowan,
So I'm Ruth Cowan. I'm a resident at 355 Alexandra Park Road. Madam Chair and the committee, thank you for the opportunity for me to give my feedback and concerns. I agree that presently the car business is not a wise use of land in a prime spot close to the overland station. Whilst I'm in favour of the creation of more housing in the borough, especially affordable housing, I have got some concerns about the proposed block. Firstly, there is the consideration of the light and privacy changes to Palace Mansions and Forest Lodge residents who have their bedroom or living room windows on the side of the properties facing the proposed building. The report on the effects of reduction of daylight shows that not all the windows of the affected properties have been assessed. This needs to be looked at again. Secondly, the style of the building doesn't relate to other homes on Bedford Road or Alexandra Park Road. Many are self-detached with pitched roofs, while this presents as a single massive block. The proposed building is exposed and sticks out 10 metres on Alexandra Park Road. It looks overbearing and is not in line with the scale of other buildings in Alexandra Park Road and the wider area. The bulk of the building, despite the recessed top floor, looks at least 1 story too high. It's higher than the properties either side and doesn't fit in visually with the different styles of houses nearby. The perspectives provided are not from the railway bridge, which is further away, nor do they show adjacent buildings for context, for example, along Alexandra Park Road. Thirdly, I'm concerned about the pressure on car parking provision in the local area. I understand that no parking permits will be given to these residents, but the present parking restrictions are from 12 to 2 weekdays. So this won't prevent the new residents from owning cars and needing to park somewhere. And all neighbours know outside of these times, especially at weekends, it can be difficult to find a parking space. Thank you.
Thank you to both of you. Right, if you can remain there, and I will ask the committee if they've got any questions. So I've got Councillor Rice and Councillor Emery.
Thank you. Can I ask you, please, why do you say that the building is 1 story too high? I take it that's the building we're looking at, proposed building, and I can't see anything wrong with the height of it. What is wrong with the height of it?
Apologies, Ruth's not able to hear a lot of what is being said.
As I couldn't hear that, so I'm deaf.
So Councillor Rice was saying that he doesn't feel the building is 1 story too high. So can you say a bit more about why you feel it is?
About what?
About why the proposed building is too high.
Oh, it doesn't fit in with either building. Both sides are lower down, so it really does stick out a lot. And especially if you go down to the bridge, the railway bridge, you can see it's really enormous. And if you look down Alexandra Park Road, the picture that you have there are trees in the way. There aren't normally those trees there. So it does stick out a lot.
Thank you. Okay. Right, Councillor Emery.
Thank you, Chair. I appreciate your comments and I really appreciate you going into detail. Mr. Simon, you mentioned that you tried to have a second meeting with the applicants. Did the applicants outline why they didn't have that second meeting?
Don't think I have called for a second meeting in particular. I have been concerned in my objections with the way that consultation has been carried out by the applicant. You know, we had one resident sort of community evening in January 2024, where the applicant met with local residents to discuss the scheme. That's the only time we've met or heard from them.
So can I just clarify that then? Did Councillor Emery, you said you requested a second meeting with the applicant. You didn't request a second meeting.
No.
Right. Oh, do you mean the QRP?
In my objection that I've spoken today, yes, the QRP requested a follow-up meeting. And I know that the planning department has justified it as not required because they're happy that the applicant has sufficiently progressed this design. I don't think they have, as I hope I outlined, but I feel is reflected in the fact that there's multiple cases. You know, there's 13 references to having to use planning conditions to deal with the QRP's recommendations. They haven't progressed the design enough, and it has to go back to the QRP. How are we ensuring the design is sufficient if otherwise?
Okay, thank you. I've got Councillor Brennan and then Councillor Warren.
So I'm following up on your concerns about driving, about parking, actually. So I imagine because it's a totally private residence development, that you are conceiving that they will have cars even though it's a car-free development. So to your mind, where would, bearing in mind that it's in a CPZ anyway, where would they go with their cars between 10 and 12? What will happen? What do you think will happen?
So they'll just be shifted to the roads further down. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Councillor Warren.
Thanks, Chair. I don't know if we will now have the opportunity to ask the officers anything based off what the objectors have said. I just felt that some quite serious concerns were raised about fire safety and about recommendations not being accepted there. And I just wondered if the officers could kind of give their perspective on that.
Yeah, I was going to bring the officers in once everyone's asked any questions. So are there any more questions from the committee? Councillor O'Donnell.
Yes, I agree that we need to have some clarification about the points you made around fire safety, which you would take extremely seriously. We'd need some confirmation. The other thing you mentioned, disability access, and there is one wheelchair accessible property, but it's important that that wheelchair accessible property is actually accessible and there is space for that wheelchair user to maneuver, but also people on all of the floors may well have friends who are disabled that will come and visit. And this development, as people have said, is big. But there's only 12 households there, so there should be enough space for lifts that are properly accessible, for wheelchairs, corridors, so and spaces inside the flats for proper manoeuvrability. I think that is one of the difficulties, is that we shouldn't just say, well, that flat is accessible. We would want all flats, if possible, particularly if they're new builds, to be accessible to people who have whatever disability. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Amin.
I'll add that I think that with the disability access, I was a little bit anxious as well when I was looking at the drawings, thinking if the lift wasn't working, I think the access point would become quite serious. And I think it felt in the drawings that the stairs would be able to help the person to come up and down. So I think it needed that whole area needs to be looked at. a little bit more.
Okay, I think can we just hold that question because we can ask that of the applicant rather than asking it of,
Sorry, Chair, I didn't mean it. I was just kind of just talking.
yeah, okay, well, if you can, yeah, all right, thank you. Okay, are there any more questions? No, so are these issues for the applicant to pick up that the objectors have?
Can start off with some of them.
Okay, right, okay, all right.
In terms of the fire safety concerns, the fire statement that was submitted was reviewed by the building control officer and planning officers, and we were satisfied that the policy requirement has been sufficiently addressed, and also a formal detailed assessment will be undertaken for fire safety for fire safety at the building control stage.
And so Val is exactly correct. So just to add to that, yeah, there's planning stage for looking at fire safety, and the requirements have been met as set out in the London plan. But before the developer can do anything on the site and complete, they have to get building control approval, which is a separate legislative regime, which planning committee cannot consider. It cannot consider other legislative regimes. So they will still need to go through the building control approval, which is a rigorous process to ensure fire safety. It's also worth noting this building is not a high-rise, high-risk buildings in terms of the definition of building safety. So it doesn't meet the criteria to go to the National Building Safety Regulator. It's not at that threshold. It's more of a sort of medium rise that doesn't hit the sort of national threshold for high risk buildings. Thank you.
Okay, so
Sorry, can I respond?
no, just hold on a moment. Okay, so yeah, you can talk about.
Oh, sorry. Okay, my first time. I'm Saloni Parikh, an urban design officer. I'll answer your point on the QRP. Yes, the QRP did recommend that we bring the application back, but given that it is a small site and we felt like we've sufficiently taken the QRP's comments and worked with the applicants to improve the scheme. And I'm sure you've seen yourself, there have been some significant improvements. So yes, it was a decision made by the council.
Sorry, just a quick one. If you also refer to the table within the officer's report, which shows that all the comments made by the QRP has been satisfactorily addressed.
Okay, all right. So all of the comments by the QRP have been addressed, as Val says. So it's not really a backwards and forwards, Mr. But did you just want to make one more comment quickly, please?
So just briefly on fire, the fire statement, the report that the fire consultant has made looks okay to me, but the drawing, the design does not match it. And to make the drawing, to make the design match it, they're going to need to add several doors to the outside of the building, reducing the shop size, reducing the shop front. They're going to have to move the staircase. They're going to have to potentially change the lift core. It becomes a different building. On the QRP,
okay, that's it.
Sorry, so as I said earlier, a formal detailed assessment will be undertaken for fire safety at the building control stage.
Okay, all right, thank you for that. So that's those questions. So we have now the applicant and okay, right. So if you can introduce yourselves, and you have 6 minutes how you decide to do that. Okay, thank you.
Chair, members of the committee, good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Maria Christou, and I'm the applicant and developer of the proposed scheme at 13 Bedford Road, N22. We're a small family-run development company and have proudly owned this site since 1981. For many years, it's operated as a petrol station and a car repair garage, but today the site is outdated, underutilised, and no longer aligned with Haringate's vision for regeneration, sustainability, or good design. Its current use contributes very little to the neighbourhood, generating noise, emissions, and forming a long-standing eyesore within the local environment. We believe this brownfield site is capable of far more. Our proposal offers a bold but sensitive transformation, a high-quality mixed-use scheme that delivers 12 residential flats and 2 commercial units. It has been designed to contribute meaningfully to the local area, bringing forward much-needed new homes, active commercial frontage, and significant environmental improvements. The application is a result of extensive collaboration with council officers and stakeholders. We've participated in 3 formal pre-application meetings, a full design review panel process, a signed planning performance agreement, and detailed technical dialogue around design, servicing, and amenity. We've also engaged with local residents early in the process, listening carefully to feedback and responding constructively. The scheme evolved as a result, with reductions in height and massing, improved materials, enhanced refuse arrangements, and open space provision. Let me highlight several key strengths of the proposal. All 12 homes meet or exceed London Plan space standards with private balconies. A car-free scheme promoting sustainable transport with secure indoor bike storage, strong sustainability credentials with green roofs, living walls, and low carbon design, a 100% biodiversity net gain, 10 times the national requirement, flexible commercial units to support local entrepreneurs, a robust policy compliant refuse and servicing strategy developed with council waste officers. We're also confident that the scheme safeguards the amenity of neighbours. A full daylight, sunlight and overshadowing assessment was carried out under the latest BRE guidance. It confirms full compliance for sunlight and that nearby gardens remain well lit. 3 windows show a moderate daylight reduction, but windows 4 and 9 serve second bedrooms, each measuring 5.95 square metres. And these are not main living rooms. And the BRE guidance allows more flexibility for smaller secondary spaces. Planning officers have reviewed the impacts and confirmed that they're not significant in policy terms. On affordable housing, we contacted multiple registered social landlords to offer 3 flats for social housing. They advised the scheme scale made it unviable, and instead we've agreed a financial contribution independently reviewed and approved by BNP Paribas, Haringate's independent surveyors. We're ready to sign the Section 106 agreement and provide 12 new homes. Finally, the wider economic benefit. The proposal represents over £4 million worth of private investment in Haringey. It delivers more than 650,000 in direct contributions, and it will generate approximately £40,000 annually in council tax and business rates, helping fund local services for years to come. The construction phase alone will inject around 1.5 million into the local economy, supporting up to 50 jobs across trades, suppliers and consultants. This is a policy compliant, economically viable and deliverable scheme benefiting both the site and the wider borough. Chair, members, this is not a speculative development. We've owned this site for 40 years. We know the neighbourhood, we care about it, and we're committed to delivering something positive for it. This is a well-designed, policy-aligned proposal that transforms an obsolete site into a vibrant, sustainable development, delivering new homes, jobs and long-term community benefit. And in conclusion, it aligns with the London Plan, the National Planning Policy Framework and the Haringey Local Plan. It reflects meaningful engagement with officers and the community and is ready to deliver now. We're proud of this proposal and respectfully ask you to support your officer's recommendation and approve the application tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Did you want to add anything?
Chair.
Good evening.
My name is Chris Georgiou. I'm the architect. I'm here to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right. So any questions, please, from the committee? So Councillor Emery.
Thank you, Chair. I note on page 6.94, sorry, 6.94 on page 212 of the report pack, it details issues with the basement impact assessment. I just want to know why there was no report on the impact of neighbouring properties and why there was no mention of contamination.
I believe we did submit a basement impact assessment, which takes into consideration the excavations and all the hydrology of the immediate area. But as previously mentioned by Valerie, this development has to go through building control, and detailed structural analysis will be undertaken, and also the hydrology of the immediate area and of the site, and that will be dealt with accordingly by the structural engineers. Similarly, with regards to the contamination. Yeah, the contamination, we declared from day one that the site is contaminated. There are old fuel tanks still underground, and there will be a remediation strategy submitted, and I believe it's one of the conditions that we will need to discharge.
Thank you. I've got Councillor Bevan.
Is it correct that all the flats are dual aspect? They have dual aspect outlook?
Yes, that is correct.
Thank you, Councillor.
And there are also some triple aspect flats as well. Dual and triple aspect flats.
Councillor Brennan.
Along the side that on Bedford Road, which is actually the way the cars drive when they go to Alexandra Palace, have you given any thought to putting on-street greening, you know, a low-level greening, anything to just sort of soften, because it's very close to the road, the front of the building, it's quite imposing.
So, from what I understand, you're referring to the pavement immediately in front of the site? Are you referring to the pavement directly in front of the site? So we've discussed this with officers, and we did accept that there is the possibility of some planting. However, we had a recent setback in that we understand that there's services under the pavement which may not allow us to do that. So what we have come to an agreement with Valerie is that there will be a condition, and what we will do, we will explore what services are below the pavement, and if there is a possibility of planting anything at all, then we will explore it and implement it.
Okay, quickly.
So what about putting some sort of like on the surface planters right on the wall of the building? Supposedly greenery cools the building down anyway, and it would look better, you know, from the point of view of us people driving through the park.
All right, let's not, sorry to interrupt, let's not start negotiating now at this stage. Valerie, did you want to come in at all on the planting?
Yes, as the architect said, a feasibility study to see whether street trees in front of the site could be planted will be secured by a legal agreement. And in the event that trees cannot be planted due to utilities and services on the street outside of the site, a payment in lieu will be made towards greening in the local area.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Worrell.
Thank you. One of the objecting residents mentioned the maintenance of the green wall and sort of plans for all of the maintenance of the greenery in the development. What are your plans of how to ensure that it's maintained?
So the maintenance of the building will be down to the management company of the block. And I don't think that any company would not take pride in looking after this building, and that they will not let the green wall die. I'm pretty sure of that.
And is there adequate access, like points for people to practically maintain it?
All the green wall planters will be accessible from each level of the building, from the internal walkways.
Councillor Donovan?
One of the residents mentioned the wheelchair accessibility and accessibility for other people who are disabled. I understand the flat that is termed wheelchair accessible is on the first floor, but obviously, as you would have heard before, it's other residents may be disabled. They may have friends that are disabled. So in terms of manoeuvrability, getting into the lift, etc., and is there sufficient space? And then my second question is about the retail units. So you have there'll be 2 retail units, and I think in one of the presentations it said at the moment the car repair company has 4 employees, and you're envisaging that maybe the retail may have up to 10 or 12 employees. Obviously, nothing is guaranteed in terms of who would want to let those spaces, but will it be a priority to you to actually get those units let as soon as possible? Because we do know that other developers, and possibly in other parts of the borough, their least priority is to rent out the retail units, so you get dark spaces on the ground floor. And I think these retail units could be a real community part of the community infrastructure for the local residents. So could you say something more about that and your priorities? Thank you.
Okay, so firstly, accessibility. There is an internal lift to the building which provides adequate disabled access to all the flats. All flats are going to be Part M2 compliant, so they're fairly accessible, not to the same standard as a wheelchair accessible flat, but quite close. So yeah, so I believe that the requirements of the building regulations Part M will be fully satisfied. With regards to the commercial spaces, this being a small family led development company, I don't think they can afford to sit back and have empty units in this location. It would be to their best interest to start and complete the development as soon as possible and let all the units out, including the commercial.
Can I just add that it's really important to us that we do have businesses in there that promote and enhance the neighbourhood, and whether it's a coffee shop or a little supermarket, we want to make the area better. So we're quite happy for to let it out as soon as possible, but with the right and below market rent.
Okay, thank you. Any more questions? No? Okay, all right. Thank you very much. Thank you. Right, so I'd like to ask Catherine Smith to confirm the proposal with a summary of any changes, please.
Thank you, Chair. The proposal in front of you is for demolition of the existing building and the erection of a new mixed-use development of up to 5 stories with commercial use, which is use class E on the ground floor, 12 self-contained flats, use class C3 on the upper levels, and a basement level as well, accommodating a plant room. There would also be cycle parking, refuse and recycling storage, a lift overrun, plant enclosure and PV panels on the roof level. The recommendation from officers is to grant, subject to conditions, and subject to a section 106. And I draw members' attention to the addendum as well. There are no other changes arising from your discussion in relation to the recommendation. Thank you.
Okay, so we'll now move to the vote. All those in favour, please show. 7. Okay. Anyone opposed? And abstentions? Okay, so 1 abstention. Okay, so that's carried. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much to everyone this evening. Thank you. Okay, so moving on, as time's pressing. So we're now on to pre-application. Right, so there's a changeover. Okay, quick 5 minute. How long is it going to take you to change over? I'm very aware of time. 5 minutes. 2 minutes. 2 minutes. All right, we'll keep going. So nobody.
I've got some text on my screen. Just been
Right, okay, so can we make a start on this one then? I need to just read this out. So this is item 11, which is 312 the High Road M15 4NB. It's pages 371 to 402 in the pack. As per committee procedure rules, Standing Order 18, no meeting shall continue after 10 p.m. except that discussion of the specific item or case in hand at 10 p.m. may continue thereafter at the discretion of the chair of the meeting. Consideration of any business remaining shall be deferred to the next ordinary meeting, except where the matters falls to be dealt with under the urgency provisions. Right, thank you. Okay, so Kwaku, can you introduce this application, please?
Yes. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor. The proposal relates to 302 High Road, Tottenham. Proposal is refurbishment, conversion, and extension of existing building, along with construction of a 2 single-story buildings to the rear, commercial unit on the ground floor, part of the ground floor, and a self-contained residential unit on the upper floor to provide a short-term temporary accommodation for 52 units, mainly for single adult homeless person. The building itself is an existing property on the eastern side of the High Road, fronting the west side of Tottenham Green. The building is also known as Excel House, which you could, if you look at the plan, that's the red line outlining in red, the site with the house standing to the back. You've got site, which is the front elevation, front of the highway with a pink and grey cladding. And then you got adjacent church, which is locally listed to it. To the rear of the site, you got the house standing with the rear car parking spaces. And then there's a shot that gives you sort of a context within the High Road. The proposal is also known as Excel House, which is partially vacant property. It's currently occupied by short-term tenants, which, I mean, it was previously used as a college for training facility. The proposal here is to restore the building back to original use, which is basically in terms of facade, you will restore all the building back to its original details, and then provide a sensitively designed extension within the roof setback from the edge of the building with lightweight structure. And then it provides 2 modest single-story extensions to the back. The scheme has gone through QRP and they provided quite supportive support for this scheme. There's a few issues that they've raised, minor issues which can be addressed. The aim really is to add value to the residents' living experience, and also to make management easier for the applicants. Thank you, Chair. I'll pass on to the applicant to really introduce the scheme. Yep.
Okay, would you like to introduce the scheme, please? Could you introduce yourselves?
Consultant. Oh, let me use my mic. Bear with me. Apologies. My name is Jerry Bell. I'm the planning consultant. I'd like to introduce Milan, who's the...
Milan Babik, we're the architects for the scheme.
My name's Newton Gatoff. I'm representing, I am the applicant. I'm representing all those interests behind me in wanting to see what is an extremely valuable opportunity, we think, for Haringey and, of course, for the broader community. So the proposal, as you will gather, is for short-term emergency housing. This is an unusual use in some respects, because you don't see a lot of these buildings in London, despite the enormous number. I think I saw over 8,000 in Kwaku's report currently in Haringey. And we've come to a conclusion over quite a number of years. We've owned the building for many years, and it was preceded by the acquisition and development in Newham of our emergency housing project, of which we are incredibly proud because it has provided an enormous value to the Newham community. And certainly councillors are welcome to view that facility, because it is that which has inspired the design and indeed the operation that we propose for Excel House. I would say that over 30 years, we have come to learn and understand the needs of the homeless that we serve. When we talk about homeless people, we talk about people who have perhaps come out of hospital and their home, their residence is no longer available to them, or they have been pushed out of home themselves. Obviously, we don't open the doors to homeless. That is not our role. Our role is to operate the suitable accommodation. Our tenants directly, if you like, are the councils in London, because it's through them that obviously our temporary residents are placed in accommodations, and nightly accommodation. I guess the most important thing that I want to make clear to you is that we also have standards of how we operate. It is important to us that it is a safe environment, number one, because obviously the nature of nightly accommodation in this sense has its complexities. We operate security 24 hours a day on site. We have a very sophisticated CCTV system to ensure that the external areas are carefully monitored. But in fact, I suppose the key to the Joy Foundation is to bring that joy to a resident who, let's be honest, has arrived there by all sorts of extraordinary means, and none of them are particularly wonderful stories. But we feel, and our residents, if you have the opportunity to see, will I'm sure share stories of just how well they feel they're being cared for is possibly not the right word, but the accommodation is what is caring for them. So these are self-contained individual units which are for single people only. We do not mix family, i.e. children and adults, with single individuals. There is a large population of single men in particular that often, it's not exclusive to men by any means. We certainly wouldn't judge that ourselves, but we find that there are a lot of single men, which obviously means children must be kept out of the area. The remaining ideas, I suppose, that we have come to with Excel is the building is in need of significant refurbishment. It is certainly financially unviable as it stands at the moment, but we have spent something, I don't know if my architect would comment on just how long this project has been in the making. We come before you, obviously, as how we see it towards the end of the process, but it's many, many, many years, and we've certainly formed some good relationships with your officers in regards to the identifying the need, because obviously this type of project relies upon the council providing occupiers. I think that's probably enough of an introduction from me, but as I say, and I'll continue to say, if you wish to see what it is that we're going to be building in some respects, then you can do no better than to look at one we prepared earlier.
Thank you. Just to answer
You've
you.
got just under 10 minutes left. Yeah. Okay.
Oh, for us to, you mean for us
Yeah,
to speak?
yeah.
Oh, I see. That's, thank you very much. We'll keep it very brief. We have been in consultation with your Director of Housing, who supports the application, and the previous Director of Housing also supported the application, having been to the site and inspected the facility that's been provided in Newham. We've gone through a whole process of discussing this with your officers, clearly understanding the planning context, the planning policies, and sought to meet those planning policies. And we have been through QRP and some of the issues that they've raised, we're going to address. We are in the process of addressing that, and that will come back to your officers to review. So I'll keep it, like I said, given the time constraints, I'll keep it brief. If someone wants to send me a Teams invite, I can I can actually put the presentation up on the screen for members to see the design and access statement. But I'll then let Milan just talk about the design.
Okay, so about 4 or 5 years ago, I was given the opportunity to work on Prince Regent Lane, which is 35 new emergency accommodation units, which was next to their existing block of about 50 units. So that's a brand new block. We've built it, we've completed, it's been running for 3-4 years. So what we've learnt from there is what we've then taken forward to Excel House. So a lot of the design matters are inputted into that scheme. In terms of design, I'll just talk about a number of key areas. The front elevation was originally designed to be removed and the new elevation put back. On the advice of the conservation officer, we were asked to remove some of the 1970s modern panelling, and what we found was the existing elevation remained. So the proposal now is to restore the front elevation and bring it back to its former glory. In terms of the mansard extension, initially it was slightly larger than what was proposed, but again, we took sight lines, we took views. Conservation added some input on materials, size of windows, etc. And so the mansard extension was reduced to lessen the impact. To the rear of the site, there's a car park that's presently used for that use. It's not needed for this particular use, so we have got single-storey units to the back of the site. The single-storey units are all accessible on the ground floor. They are probably the most valuable and most needed units that are required in Haringey. The rest of the site, it's a matter of providing good-sized accommodation units. They are between 20 to 25 square metres on average. They have their own en-suites, kitchenettes, table, chairs, bed, obviously, wardrobe. They become self-sufficient and allow the person to engage. The building is generally quite functional. I think you saw some of the buildings. It's almost like a factory with windows punched in. That will all be repaired, new windows installed. We will achieve the energy requirements required. It will be sustainable. We've got green roofs. There will be a green space to the rear of the site for people to engage in. We've provided 2 car park spaces because we do need social services and people like that attending the site. Fully CCTV'd, it's fully secured, and we think we can make a really successful operation and a use that's required in Haringey. Thank you.
Well, let me just say, first of all, that I am disappointed that there isn't a better presentation, because I think me as the chair and the members, we should have a good presentation. So perhaps you could look into what happened there and just let me know, because while I appreciate the invitation to Newham, I want to know what it's going to look like here in Tottenham. So okay, I've said my bit there.
Clearly, we're disappointed as well. If we were informed that we had to do a presentation and given the team's meeting invite so we can share it, we would. But we weren't aware of that, and I'm quite happy to do it now. If someone can send me a team's invite, we can actually put it up on the screen.
Let me just ask if members have got any questions. So right, Councillor Bevan.
So I'm a bit confused. So this is a pre-app briefing. It's not the actual planning application. Is that correct?
Can I just clarify that, Councillor Bevan? So it is a briefing to you, but the planning application has already been submitted. So this is slightly different to how we would normally do things. But given the sensitivities around this scheme, we've asked the applicant to come along this evening to brief you on it, so you have the opportunity to ask any questions before we finalise our assessment and bring it to you for a formal decision in the future.
Couple of things for the applicant. First of all, what is your status? Are you a charity, a mutual beneficial society, a normal profit-making company? If you can answer that first, then I've got some other points.
We are a profit-making company. The Joy Foundation is a trading name. And yes, I can say that quite categorically.
Right, then I think you should know that this part of Tottenham is quite stressful. There's already 1 or 2 schemes quite nearby that are causing loads of antisocial behaviour, crime problems, etc. So I'm just letting you know that straight away.
We would invite all councillors to come to Prince Regent Lane to see the site there, so you can see how it operates and how secure it is.
And also, I mean, overnight means it's a transient community. There's no community being developed. It also says here, other local authorities will use your accommodation. So that means other local authorities. It says it here on para 4.4. So other local authorities could be sending many people who need lots of extra help into Haringey, as if we haven't got enough to do already. And then also the community safety officer hasn't submitted any comments. His comments are still awaiting. The police in the following paragraph say it's a high crime area on paragraph, the bottom of page 375. They say it's related near to the college. It's a high crime area. And if you've talked to some other people like Bubic, people who work in this area on various drug issues, all the problems that these people have encountered, I'm really not convinced that this is the right location in Haringey. In the most deprived part of Tottenham, you're putting a project of this size with all the points that I've mentioned. I really don't think it's acceptable to be in this part of Tottenham. That's my view.
Councillor Bevan, Councillor Rice, sorry, I'll bring you in. Catherine.
Sorry, can I just raise a point in that this is a briefing on a planning application. So I think it should be, if you could focus more on questions. I know comments will inevitably come forward, and that's helpful too. I don't want anybody to prejudice themselves when the application form comes forward to planning committee in the future.
Okay, all right, thank you. We will note that. So I've got Councillor Brennan, then Councillor Rice, and then I'll bring you in, Councillor Watt.
So I've got 2 queries. So you say it's short-term emergency accommodation, but what happens with these residents when we can't move them on? Because I know we've had other short-term accommodation, emergency accommodation within Haringey, not a lot, I admit, we've got very little, but I've in meetings been told that they've stayed for a very long time because although it's meant to be short term, there is nowhere for them to move. So that's one thing. What happens once they're in there? It's supposed to be short term and there's nowhere for them to go. The second thing is, as you're obviously a profit-making organisation, are your prices comparable with the current temporary accommodation market? Are you a bit less than them, or are you a bit more than them, or are you just, how do you compare? Thank you.
Can I just come back a couple of points, first of all, that was made about the crime and security issues. There is going to be quite a detailed management plan that will be submitted with the application. And that management plan will detail how the facility is going to be run, and that will be part of the legal agreement that we will sign with the council in terms of trying to deal with any antisocial behaviour. So there'll be a lot of surveillance, there'll be a lot of management on the site, and you can talk more to that in terms of how the facilities is going to be run. But also say that we face a very significant housing crisis in the borough, and I think the director of Housing has actually said to us there's something like 8,000 people on the waiting list that they on this particular type of accommodation, and it's desperately needed. Now, where they're going to go afterwards, I mean, clearly we're not the housing authority, so it's not something that we can answer. It's not a question that we can answer, and that's a matter to a large extent for the council as the local housing authority. But what we're doing is we're providing a facility that allows people to be homed rather than be on the streets in the interim whilst they're waiting to be permanently housed. That might take one night, that might take 6 weeks, it might take longer, but it's an opportunity for someone to be housed rather than be on the street, which would be the alternative to they're not being housed in one of these facilities. And I think, I mean, the fact that we're, it's a private organisation, although it's not really a planning matter, it doesn't negate the fact that it's got social value. And in terms of the pricing, I'm happy for you to respond to that. But
so in terms of the pricing, it's extremely competitive. I'm not appearing in, a full expensive suit here simply because this is a hard business to run. It's not an easy business to run, but it is an extraordinarily worthwhile business to run. Can I just, so yes, it's effectively those rates we often find are set by the council. We don't necessarily get to call the shots all the time. There is an element of negotiation, but council tends to block book areas for a period of time. And one of the reasons I'm here today is because Haringey has a need. That may not be accepted as a wanted need, but it is a need. I just want to talk a little bit about the types of people that are in there, because we do not experience antisocial behaviour in our properties, anything like the sort of ideas that you may have. This is a larger, this isn't a small house with bedsits. This is a large property that has been purpose built for that purpose. This is an internal refurbishment effectively, but it is designed to ensure that we get the max. Sorry.
Meeting, not a social service meeting.
I know, yeah.
Why are we going on the social services line? That's only by the way, not a fundamental aspect of what we choose.
It is a question about antisocial behaviour, which
And I'm not clear what building he's talking about. Where's this building?
Have you got a picture of the building?
I know Tottenham fairly well.
Yeah, no, I know you
40
do.
years
Councillor.
plus.
Yeah, yeah.
Where's the building?
Have you got a picture of the building? It's the Excel building. Can we get it on the screen? Sorry to. I've got some questions to ask about the design and that, but I'll let you finish that. If the committee, if we can just, I mean, it is 5 to 10 as well, so everybody's got to get home. Okay, right.
So
I do
just-
apologise for interrupting you. Please carry on.
Just one further point of clarification in terms of nomination rights, and then the point is making that other councils can bring residents onto the site. That's not the case. The nomination rights will go directly to this council, and it's only if we don't, there's no opportunity to house residents from this borough into the premises, do we then have the opportunity to go elsewhere? But Haringey will have first call on these premises. Now, judging from what the Director of Housing is saying, it's going to be very well used. So there will not be residents coming from other boroughs. There will be a legal agreement with the plan that will come forward, which means that we have to offer it to Haringey first, and only to Haringey in the event that, and the only time we can offer it to other authorities is if Haringey don't need it or don't want it for some reason.
Hey.
Just one other point I need to make, which is that you'll recall we're effectively building single units in the at the back of the site, which are for disabled access, and that's something which is desperately needed. We know if we could build many more, we would, because that's becoming a real problem for social housing at the moment. Anyone trying to access it with a wheelchair or with other more sophisticated problems will be delighted to see this type of accommodation available to them. So it isn't just, whatever picture you may have in your mind of the type of user, it is a very broad church of people that come to a point in their lives where they need emergency housing, and it is becoming enormously difficult to find. That's my.
Right. Okay. I'm going to ask some questions now. So the QRP, it said a landscape architect's input would be hugely beneficial at the design, particularly around the outdoor spaces. Are you going to bring in a landscape architect?
Simple answer to that is yes. We can either try and do it now or we can have it conditioned.
Because I was looking just at the sketches. I wasn't particularly, I mean, the design of the open space is just very basic in this pack. Now, I've been to some schemes, and I've been to an almshouse scheme in Southwark, of which I can't remember, St Aloysius or someone, with an absolutely fabulous outdoor space, which is, in my view, what we should be aspiring to here, not just a few shrubs and some benches. So I do hope that you will, and that you will give us, when you come back, a design on what the garden is. Second thing is the extension blocks. Yeah, what are they going to look like? Are they? I mean, they're not going to look like containers.
Well, there'll be quality brickwork with doors and windows. They'll have green roofs, which people from inside the building will be able to see. The point is that they are simple 25 square metre units, and they are for fully accessible people.
Can you show us a design of what they're going to look like? Have you got something that you can show us?
We have.
Okay.
Wait, can you not send me, someone send me an email with the Teams meeting invite so I can log into it? Can anyone do that at all? Can you do that? Yeah.
It's got some pictures of these are but if you like they understand the emergency accommodation we have looking at propose. No, that was the site in Prince Regent Lane.
So we're trying to give you an understanding of what we build and how it looks from the inside, because
that site had a particular.
Sorry, can we just look? I know it's difficult because we haven't got the presentation. Can we just, everybody just can't, because I can't concentrate. Right. Sorry. So that there, is that what the extension's going to look like?
No, that is Prince Regent Lane in Newham.
Right. Okay. Well, I would like to see what the extension blocks are going to look like. Richard, can I ask your comment on the extension buildings? What do you think to the design?
Very simple, single story, two rows of identical small bedsit rooms with a separate ensuite shower room, each with their own front door off the courtyard area. What can I say, really? very simple.
Okay. All right. Very, very simple. Okay. All right. Thank you for that. To see more of a yeah, if you could.
That's noted.
Okay, thank you. Okay, all right. I've asked I'll bring in the rest of the committee now. So Councillor Rice, did you want to come in on anything more than what you said? Right, well, it's my discretion that we go over 10 o'clock. So as I think we'll get through these questions and then we can call it a day. So I've got Councillor Warren.
Thank you. This is relevant because it's about the justification for the development. So you say like nightly short-term accommodation. Are you referring to like temporary accommodation for people owed a statutory homelessness duty? Are you referring to people who may have been rough sleeping and who are not necessarily owed a duty? Is it a mix? I'm just trying to understand what need in the council specifically this is designed to meet.
So that is almost a question for your housing officers, because we wouldn't discriminate. Obviously, the assessment is made by the office, the social officer, as to whether it's an appropriate space for that individual. We wouldn't discriminate ourselves as to whether that person was appropriate or not. So it is a broad church. It is a big mix of people in all sorts of circumstances. Certainly not just drugs and alcohol. Obviously, that does contribute to people being out of home, but that's not actually something that we are overwhelmed with as far as we're concerned, because that goes through as I say, the housing officer's role to ensure that the appropriate person is put into the accommodation.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Amin?
Can I just ask, I mean, based on your experience of being in Newark, how much you charge per night?
Charges are, and this is from memory at the moment, is between 45 and 55 pounds per night.
45 to 55. How does it differ? Why does it differ?
The 50.
Sorry for
just the volume, yeah. The 55 would be for the disabled accommodation. So that's the more valued and the more needed accommodation as well. So, but it's from a practical perspective, we obviously have to have a spread.
Okay, thank you. How long do most residents stay? Say, this is still talking about Newark.
Yes, which goes to a point that was asked earlier. We do have some residents that would stay longer than 3 or 4 days. That's a fact. And yes, it's particularly in the disabled accommodation. You might find somebody staying for a month, 6 weeks. I mean, this isn't a long-term issue for us. We don't. Obviously, we want our building occupied and fully occupied if we can, but we will work with council to ensure that we get the best turnover that we possibly can from the units, because clearly that's part and parcel of what they need to achieve. And a lot of the time people come in, they may move out of the borough, they may not stay in the borough. So I can't tell you, I mean, if there are 50 odd units, there are 50 totally different stories to present to you as to who and why and how they got there.
So what's their journey like? I'm just so sorry. I just wanted to get a feel for.
All right, well, can you, if you've got 3 or 4 points, if you could just let me know.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, thank you, rather than just having an individual conversation with
My
someone.
apologies. Can I ask a few questions?
How many questions have you got?
I've got 1, 2, 3. 4.
Okay, well, can you just ask the questions and let the applicant respond to all of them, rather than it being a conversation between.
My apologies. On how do you differ from a hostel? Keep the question, please, because we have quite a lot of hostels in the borough, and there's also issues about hostels and accommodation they provide. I mean, I've asked you about the question. The staffing, how does the staffing work, day and night? I was wondering whether, the presence of staff all day. On ASB behaviour, you said you don't have any experience of antisocial. Oh, well, I'd be very, very surprised. So it'd be helpful to know how do you manage people who have emotional and behavioural issues. They're bound to. This is just how it is. And finally, I mean, for an area, have you looked at what kind of temporary accommodation we have for single men, as it were, in Haringey? Have you had a proper look at what dimensions, different types of accommodation we have already? And have you considered, the High Road, where we have so many issues, I mean, the High Road is a problem area, be the right place for you to provide such accommodation?
Through the chair, thank you. So I'd start with the last point. Absolutely the right location, because it is street frontage and there's a secure gate. So we have within the design, when you get to see it, we have a reception to bring people who are coming into the building directly off the street. And then we can take them through into the facility itself. We have certainly looked at the broader needs of Haringey, but this project has been underway for 3 years. So as of today's needs, all we know of what the housing officer tells us, which is they'd have this tomorrow if we could provide it to them. That's much as I can answer there. You have to remind me your first point, which was around, well, certainly on the antisocial side. I'm not suggesting for a moment that somebody that comes to us with a drug problem isn't, isn't sitting around the table as we are here today. How we address that is with excellent staffing. So our staff, firstly, we have 2 security staff there at all times. So 24 hours a day, there will be our own staff there. No council staff stay on site at any times other than when they need to come and go. And I'd say that the vast majority of those residents that we currently have experienced, and I think you'll find London Borough of Newham mirrors a lot of the antisocial issues that you have here, particularly along Prince Regent, which is, it's very much a comparable road to the High Road. You would find the reason we can manage it is because it is a closed site. You cannot walk into it. You have to be allowed access into it. So we won't let just anyone walking off the street. That's part of why it's a controlled environment. The staff that we employ also are cleaners, and when I say cleaners, I mean they're there to provide clean sheets once a week. They're there to, obviously, they become aware of who's moving in when they move in, and they're on site during the course of the day. There could be 6 or 7 staff around during the day. And obviously there's a manager on site. There's a lot to running this short-term accommodation, which is very, very different to hostels, which are almost an informal community living style. Sorry, I'm addressing one person. But it is unusual to see in Haringey this type of property. I don't think it's comparable to anything you have at the moment. I know that council does provide some short-term accommodation and does it well. We feel we do a better job purely because we take such pride in ensuring the quality of the accommodation remains at a really good level. So if we do have an antisocial issue, so because I can see that's a concern for councillors, we would have to completely, in other words, the room is not what it should be when it's vacated, then we would completely refurbish that room if that was necessary. And it is occasional, but it hasn't proven to be so regular. Sorry.
Thank you. I think you've covered. I'm sorry to rush you, but it is getting late. So I've got Councillor Emery and then Councillor O'Donovan, and then we'll bring the question in. I'm sorry, Councillor Rice. I just want to make sure everybody gets the chance. Go on, Councillor Emery.
Thank you, Chair. Just want to talk about the previous use of the building, which a lot of the comments spoke about in the online panel. Just wondering if there's any ability to incorporate any of those previous uses in the current design.
Yeah, I think clearly we are not seeking to retain the existing church and community uses in the upper floors, but what we are doing is bringing back a retail use on the ground floor, so that there is some clear communication with the street. There's a retail frontage. It'll be open to the public, so there'll be the public access to this retail frontage on the ground floor. You can see it here in green. It's going to change a little bit from what you're seeing now, because we're exploring what the QRP comments have asked us to do. The QRP panel, have asked us to do. So that might change, but we are bringing a retail use on the ground floor to introduce employment. So it's not entirely and wholly just for the accommodation. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Right, Councillor Donovan, a quick one.
Yes, of course, it's a question. The QRP, there was a QRP panel meeting on the 2nd of July, and obviously when the planning application comes forward, we'll see will want to see how many of those recommendations you've included in the application, or if there's reasons why you haven't. I mean, they talk in relation to vulnerable people who may be actually the victims of crime, and they're saying that the entrances, they wanted some work around the entrance, and it's a dark alley. They welcome the fact there will be a cafe, although they're also saying they want some changes in relation to the cafe, but they think that might be an area. And I think they also they talk about the dignity of the people living there, and that they can in some way rebuild their home and have a warm, secure place to live, even if only for a short time. And some of the things they're talking about is storage inside the room, and also activities in the communal areas as well. And it may be that we may be looking for less units, but more communal areas where people can interact and rebuild their lives. So I suppose the question is, which will probably apply to in your application, is how much of the quality review panel's suggestions have you taken on board? Thank you.
The simple answer to that is that we've gone through the 6-7 pages that they've written. We've done 2 columns, their comments and our response and what we've done. So we have looked at the entrances, the undercroft, some of the spaces internally. So we will be doing a formal response back to them via Kawaku this week. We've taken their comments very seriously.
Okay, all right. Thank you. Thank you very much indeed. That's the end of the meeting. Committee members can contact the officers on any of the other items. So I'm just going to bring this meeting to a close. Thank you very much. I'm sorry that you had to wait so long. All right. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Good night.